To introduce a gentleman from Texas and my good friend Louie Gohmert.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming out because this is a very, very critical issue for this country. We are a land of immigrants, Native Americans, but then the thing I loved that I saw the day after the worst attack in American history, as people gathered around in courthouse squares like we did in my hometown, we held hands. We sang together, we prayed together, and as I looked around the circle at all races, creed, color, we had all types of folks there. But that day, on 9/12 of 2001, there was no hyphenated Americans anywhere. We were all simply Americans. That came from people immigrating and becoming one people. A pluribus unum, out of many came one people, and that makes us strong. And when we ignore the rule of law, we actually become like countries that many immigrants are fleeing, because the rule of law, if it's not observed, then you have chaos. And so you have to come to a country where the rule of law is enforced. The only thing worse is to come and say, now that we're here, we want you to ignore the rule of law that made you a much stronger country than wherever we came from. But then by ignoring the rule of law, you disintegrate into the same type of chaos from which these people came. We've been told there may be a billion and a half people in the world who would like to come to America. Why? Because we are fair. Overall, we're a good people, a fair people, an exceptional country, and we enforce the rule of law across the board. But if we fail to do that, if we say, or we have a president, and it's not just confined to this president, the last president didn't sufficiently secure the border, but if we have a president who holds hostage his obligation to protect the country and to secure the borders, and be sure you understand, nobody behind me or that supports our position wants a closed border. Immigration is a life spring. It brings additional life and rejuvenation to this country. It's a good thing. But we have to make sure we don't get overwhelmed by people that want to destroy us. And for those who have made fun of me for commenting that we had radical Islamists that came across our border trying to blend in with Hispanics, all they needed to do was get off their lazy rears and do a little research, and they'd find out that the director of the FBI has previously testified before our committee that you had radical Islamists who adopted Hispanic-sounding names, would go to places like Mexico, get identification papers, and then try to blend in as if they were Latin Americans or Hispanic Americans and come across our border. We have an obligation to this country to make sure that those coming in want to be a part of the greatest nation and are willing to assimilate and be a part and not destructive of this country. And that also includes an enforcement of the visa overstays, which over 40% of the people illegally here apparently have overstayed visas. You had people in Boston who had overstayed visas, and yet they were not being checked. And if the FBI does not have the resources to check one individual who Russia has given us a heads up on, has radicalized in wanting to harm America, then do you think that the system will be better if we add 11 million more people all of a sudden, instantaneously, for the FBI to check out and make sure they're not going to be a threat? There will be threats involved in that, just as we saw in Boston when we had people who were linked to either terrorists or terrorism that were questioned, and even one Saudi that was wanting to be deported. It is a danger to this country. So let me also say, for a president to say, I'm not going to secure the border, which is his sworn obligation to protect this country, unless you give legal status to millions of people, it does a couple of things. Number one, as I've heard from sheriffs and border patrolmen, it has become a magnet. Some of you have reported we got 3, 4, 5 times more people coming across our border just because of the talk of potential amnesty if they can get over here. And they say, oh yeah, but we'll require proof. Well, in the past, we've seen proof could be composed of an affidavit signed by the individual saying, oh yeah, I came by the time you said I had to be here. We have to first secure the border so only people lawfully coming in come in. We do need to reform our immigration system. It's pitiful. It shouldn't take longer to get a visa here than it does in a third world country. We're better than that. But for this president to say, I won't secure the border unless you give legal status to all these people, would be hypothetically like some random president saying, hey, media, if you don't write good stories, I'm going to be going into your phone records on a regular basis until you start, just hypothetically. Or like saying, hey, groups, you better get off my back or we're going to harass you with the IRS, just hypothetically. Now, none of us would stand for that, right? So why should we stand for a president who is saying, I won't secure the border properly until you give legal status? Let's secure the border, and then we can work out an immigration package like that.